Today on the Daily Tool Review, I'll be talking about my Stihl weed eaters and my one Stihl blower. I got these when I was in the lawn care business. I had a lot more equipment than just this, of course. And now I've got a Hustler zero turn, which is right there. And then I have 4 weed eaters, only one blower, pressure washer, all sorts of equipment, weed killer, fertilizer, mulch, all that fun stuff. I used to have a Ferris 61-inch zero turn 2100, and it was awesome. Full suspension. I could mow at 12 miles an hour. I loved it. It was great. I used to also have a few Husqvarna products, blowers, weed eaters, but I sold them and no longer have them anymore. But today I'm going to be talking about the FS70, which is right here. This is the model look of the actual body structure. The FS70s are super easy to start. They're super reliable, but they are cable driven. They are not a steel shaft. They are a straight shaft, but a cable shaft will have cables that go from the motor or transmission down to the actual weed eater head. A steel shaft will have one straight steel rod going from the transmission to the head to turn it. Steel will last a lot longer. Steel rod going all the way down will last a lot longer. But there are some side effects to that. It costs a lot more. You have to keep it running the whole time. You got to be on that trigger, otherwise it may die. It's also really bad on the transmission. If you start a steel rod up, and so if you aren't constantly pulling the trigger and you are pulling it and then you let go as you go to the next spot, it may die. And then when you pull the trigger again, it's really hard on the transmission, so you got to keep it going the whole time from when you go to spots to spot. You got to let it idle a little bit, or have the head spinning a little bit. The power is really good if you're doing residential. It's not nearly the power of the FS90, but if you're just mowing your own house or mowing a few yards, the FS70 is going to be great. It's going to be really fast. It's going to be really efficient. There is some wobble to it when you take the safety guard off. Unlike the FS90, there's really no wobble, so that's something you need to keep in consideration. The head tilt is the same on the FS90 and the FS70, so that's something you don't have to worry about. But the triggers are very different. So this is the FS90. It has the stop and start. It has the safety trigger switch right there. The starting of the FS90, as you can tell, the body is completely different than the FS70. The FS70 is like round and modernish, whereas this is the steel body that everybody knows for weed eaters. The FS90 is my favorite personally. It's got a ton of power. It's heavy, but it's got a ton of power. So if you need one weed eater to do everything, the FS90 is going to be way better, because you can clear brush, you can do whatever you want with it. You can swap out the heads, put different features on it, things of that nature. The power's great. The gas, the fuel is pretty good. It'll last you for quite a while on one tank. It's very reliable. It's not as easy to start as the FS70, and it doesn't have that idle issue, but it has all that power when you need it. And for edging, it doesn't wobble like the FS70, so you can get a much cleaner edge. If you go to my Instagram, you'll see all my edging and different things that I do. I don't own a lawn care company currently, But I still like to keep my yard looking really nice, and I help people out with other lawn care things when they need it: pressure washing, edging, weed eating, mowing. So I'm still in the industry. It's not like I got out completely, and so that's why I can keep up to date on my products. And I mow my yard a couple times a week usually, keep it nice and striped, and I try different patterns. But the FS70, very good, very quick, very efficient, not as strong, won't last as long either. The FS90, very strong, a little bit more expensive, will last a long time, but not as it's really fast because it has so much power, but at the same time it's not fast to start up. It's not the fastest from transitioning because it has to spool up to that power, so you'll hear the head like that every time you pull the trigger to full blast. This is the BG50 Stihl. This was my hand blower when I had the company, and it's great. It's pretty powerful. It's kind of tricky to start up. It's not the easiest starter for a blower in the world. If you don't pull the trigger right and you don't start the choke right and all that kind of stuff, it will not start properly. So when you pull the trigger full blast, it does this weird, like, I want to start but I can't, and then it'll just die. But over maybe 50 to 100 starts, you'll get really used to it. You'll just know how to do it. It has really good fuel life. For me now, I maybe have to fill it up like once a month, something like that. But I'm only using it for a couple properties. So my favorite blower that I ever had was my Husqvarna backpack blower. It was great. The fuel was incredible. Even when I was mowing all day, every day, it would last me a few days. It was really powerful too. And we had this one, of course, for the smaller projects, or so we could have multiple people blowing at one time. It's a great little blower, but it's definitely a smaller blower. So if you're doing a bunch of properties, I would recommend going with something a little bit more powerful, a little more reliable. But it was always nice to have a second blower. The Stihl lineup's really good. They're really strong. They're really powerful. They are not the lightest. They are not really the quickest either. If you're looking for light and quick and really efficient, I found Husqvarna to be really, really good at that. The products don't last as long, but I had a couple Husqvarna weed eaters that were super light, and they were great at really, really quick. So if you maintained a property, had it edged really, really nicely, the Husqvarna was always the quickest way to go. But if you had a property that needed like a lot of edging and a lot of work, you had to go with a Stihl just because it had more power, so it could do a better job at edging and all those details. And I'll talk more about lawn care in the future. I'll talk more about mowers and maintenance and things like that. But that wraps it up for the weed eaters and the Stihls for now.